Hi folks, welcome back. So today we've got a brand new band on the channel. The band's name is Mother of Millions and the song is Rite. This request comes in from one of my VIP patrons over on Patreon, Jamie Worth. So thank you for the request, Jamie. He's given me a little blurb here. Normally I don't do any research or anything into the bands to sort of give you as much of a genuine, unbiased, don't know what's going to go on reaction. But yeah, I'm going to read out his little blurb to see what he says. So I discovered them within the last year or two. And while they don't have a big catalogue, I would put the album this song came from, Artifacts, up there with some of Caligula's Horses albums. Wow, that's a bold statement. Caligula's Horse are amazing. So, the first time I heard this song, something reminded me of some of Jeff Buckley's songs. Also a massive Jeff Buckley fan. I'm a huge Jeff Buckley fan, have been for a long, long time. So yeah, wow. Not a specific song, but there was something familiar, and I'm not musically inclined enough to know if it's anything legitimate or if it was just a random association in my brain. I don't know if it's some of the vocal delivery, even though the voice is different, or something with the melodies, or some of the chords they use, but something made me make that association. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and let me know in your analysis if you hear anything reminiscent of Jeff Buckley, or if I'm just crazy. Cheers. Right, okay, thanks for that. Looking forward to this. If you do enjoy the videos, folks, please do like and subscribe. Consider supporting me on Patreon. That's where you can get your requests in. And comment below. What are your thoughts on the song? Do you know it already? Is it a brand new song? What do you think? And yeah, the format of the video then, I'm going to listen to the song right through uninterrupted for the first time. And then I'll run it back through and sort of maybe break down some thoughts that occurred to me or expound on some thoughts that occurred to me the first time through. So yeah, looking forward to this. Let's get going. Wow. It's funny because I was just wondering about where the band are from, and there was a couple of names that flashed up on the screen there. Is that Greek? It was something about the pronunciation of the words from the singer. It didn't sound like English was his native language. There's an accent. Guessing that those words kind of look Greek to me. Yeah, really, really cool. Lots of emotion and real feel, great vibe and atmosphere throughout the song. The Jeff Buckley thing, I'm not sure, if you hadn't have mentioned Jeff Buckley, I'm not sure I would have drawn a parallel. But since you have, my brain was trying to sort of put pieces together as to just, your query is what it is. I think if I was to draw any parallels to Jeff Buckley, it's the drum sounds very organic. Now, of course, it's an acoustic kit, um, but I don't know when this is from, of course, but I'm guessing it's quite current. In which case, a lot of the sort of today's production on acoustic kits, they can sample, in addition to the acoustic sounds, they can add in samples to thicken the sound. Excuse me, to give it more weight and punch, especially within heavier sort of bands. And one thing that can do is it can be at the detriment of dynamics. And so something about the drum production in this, it felt very like not overly produced. There were moments where I heard, the snare. The snare had a sort of a ring off this sort of shell, which made me think of like older recordings, so maybe something from the 90s, as you suggest. So yeah, just something about the sort of organic, not overly produced sound on the drums would maybe think of like the drum sound that's maybe on Grace, something similar to that. The vocals, obviously, they're all clean and they're very highly emotional and they're up in a higher register. So I guess maybe that is why you're hearing the comparison there. Musically, there were definitely several chords used that you wouldn't expect. Once they've sort of set the scene and the sort of tonal harmony of everything at the beginning, there were definitely some unexpected chords throughout. And obviously that's something I would associate with Jeff Buckley is, he was he was a genius in many different ways, but actually his composition and the chord choices he made, almost sort of from like a jazz kind of perspective. Not that it sounds like jazz, but experimental and like taking you to places that you wouldn't expect. But anyway, as for the song itself, really, really enjoyed it. Something I did that I thought was quite refreshing was the band don't seem to make too much fuss about trying to be showy or virtuosic. And in this music, it's kind of similar bands would be doing a thing like this. Things can get sort of a little bit carried away in the heavier sections to make the riffs sort of very ornate, technical, and that kind of thing. The riffs kind of felt like, I mean, they're technical in their own way, and you could argue that the virtuosity is in the emotional delivery. So virtuosity doesn't have to mean technical prowess, but it does have technical prowess. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, it didn't appear to be at the forefront of the music. They seemed to like, establish a riff and just let that riff unfold, take its time, and sort of just allow you to sort of, sit within it instead of sort of bombarding you with lots of different riffs and time signature changes and all that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Even the introduction, there was nothing hurried. It sort of just took their time, the sort of long, slow build up. Yeah, so great stuff. Should we go back through and talk a little bit more about what's going on? Let's do it. Who's we? It's just me. But sometimes it feels like there's more than me. Conversations. Inner conversations. And this is where I go off the rails. So, let's go. Please consider taking a moment to check out my other channel, JW Soundworks, where you will find unique cover song performances. Newly composed piano arrangements, of my self-composed original music. There's one of those chords. Anyway, so approximately 40 seconds in, let's have a little look at what's going on. Lots of ostinatos. The guitar's playing this sort of... We're in B minor. It seems to go to the G major 7, I think. That's the ostinato, obviously, going round and round. The piano parts. Not getting in each other's way, you know, they're not just playing the same thing. And then you can hear the parts, each member sort of coming in gradually, and the bass sort of taking a little bit longer before they come in, and then the drums coming in finally. Yeah. You can hear, although I said it was in B minor, the actual chord, you know, and it's not just a straight B minor, there's definitely a ninth in there. You can hear the C sharp. Yeah, beautiful voicings. Some kind of F sharp chord there. Not straightforward, just F sharp major. You know, you can hear that again, the tension in that. The D in there, so it's like a sixth, type of sixth. Back to the G. You know what I mean? Just taking the time. Just letting us sitting in that. You know, the riff is quite straightforward, but it's very impactful with that syncopation. In between, you know, the beats there, you can hear it, and it's just up to the octave. But the slides down from the 12th fret are dum 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 dum. You know, it's a little bit more effective, you know, than playing that just on the piano there. Must shout out there is a Reverend guitar. I have a Reverend as well. I've got a Pete Anderson Telecaster. Reverend guitars are fantastic. Fantastic value for the money, so they are really beautiful. beautifully made instruments. You hear the tone of that snare, and you've got the obvious sort of like the center hits on it, like, but you can definitely hear like a sort of overtones coming through, which I think some producers would hear that and try and get rid of that sound, but I actually like that they've got that. It's just very nuanced, especially it's a snare drum, but you hear on all those rolls, it doesn't sound sort of homogenized. It's got those sort of different nuances coming out, which again I was saying to you about, you would expect to hear that sort of more on older recordings. Okay, so before the vocals come in, the last thing there is the guitar. It's the strumming of the guitar with lots of delay, interspersed, bouncing around. It's very atmospheric, beautiful. Very tasty bass playing. So this is one of the things, there's actually quite a bit of space in the musical arrangement at this point for the singer, but they're not just sitting. You can hear all those. There's a bit of decoration going on in the bass. The band are obviously very in tune with one another, so they're not playing over the top of one another. No, you take this part, you take that part. It's usually a sign of a band that's been playing together for a while, or if not, musicians that know about that stuff and very aware about it's not just me, listen to me playing my part, and that usually takes a long time for bands, in their sort of career before they start putting out stuff. Usually the early stuff it's all a little bit sort of chaotic and thrown together. Not always, of course, but that shows me the sign of a band that one of those two things. Essentially either they've been playing together for a while and figure those things out, or these guys they just know straight off the top how to put a song together. See how the guitars and the keyboards are very much. It's actually the rhythm section of the band, the drums and the bass are really driving this part. That's an unusual chord there, I have to point that out. There were a couple in there, but that one... What is that note down there? It's because the theoretical part of my brain's going, well, we're in B minor, G major, A major, D major, E and stuff like that. There's something about that note. It feels like it doesn't belong. Is it the C? Yeah, that's why, because B minor has a C sharp, so the C natural. That's the odd note. Is it just a C major chord? some type of C chord, actually, you know. But the C major in this context sounds really dissonant. Great singing. There's all the elements coming together, that riff from the start, and also the, what's the little motif again? Da, 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 on the piano part. They're coming together for the chorus. What's that? So it's like an E minor, probably an E minor 9. And a D. Back to the B minor. Very hooky. That's not right. Yeah, very hooky, you know. I got this. That's not part of it. That's an alarm to tell me to do something, but I'll have to wait. So what was it? Or they work together really well. Goes on it. Bass drum. Dun, 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 dun. So a shift in the production there. You can hear from that big sort of wide open space sound of the chorus to now like sort of more claustrophobic. Everything sort of narrows there, gets more punchy. Some sneaky stuff going on with the snare there, sort of throwing us off a little bit. And then not bringing it in the second time there. Great tone on the lead guitar, I must say. You know, great note choices. It's a beautiful guitar solo, very melodic, very expressive, and not showy in any way. You know, playing for the song, just as it should be done. But the actual tone itself, you know, again, maybe just what you were saying about the sort of 90s thing. It does feel a little bit reminiscent of some of the tones from that sort of era. It doesn't have the sort of high gain that you might expect to get in a lead break here these days. More sort of crunchy.
Above your shoulders.
You know, actually, if I was to draw a comparison to another band, the one that's sort of stand out to me most would be Leprous. I know their music has sort of evolved in different ways throughout the years, but it puts me a little bit in the mind of the stuff that Einar Solberg is doing with Leprous. There's that riff again. Now the drums, obviously busy and technical there, but that's cool. But just before the drum fill there, I was going to say that was the example of what I mentioned at the start, which was in these sort of breaks where the vocals come out. We could get very busy, fill this with something technical, but no, we're sort of really, more focused on the groove and the atmosphere and just letting that riff play. I think this stuff would work really well live. Some bands that have a lot of busyness going on in the progressive sort of scene, when you see them live, if they get a very good sound live, it sounds great. But sometimes because there's so much going on live, for some reason it doesn't just come across the same way. Because the band has lots of space here, I think this would work really well live, be very powerful. That's the end. Yeah, thanks for this request, man. This is really good stuff. I'll have to fire this on the big speakers in the living room, later on, crank it up, and yeah, enjoy it in full there. I want to hear this being played loudly because I feel like there's, even though I've got a good set of in-earphones here, but I think if that was played really, really loudly, you would get even more of a sense of the dynamic within the performance. It's very raw in a good way. So thanks for this request, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, like and subscribe. Consider checking out more of my stuff. I've got piano channel there as well with sort of a lot of classical pieces and different things, and I'm a sort of music artist myself, do my own stuff. If you want to check out the original JW Soundworks without the 2 on the end, you'll have a little look around there. Be much appreciated. Thanks, folks. Look after yourselves. Bye. If you're passionate about piano, whether as a player or listener, or if you're considering online lessons or masterclasses, please visit my YouTube channel, JW Piano Works. There you'll discover a wealth of piano performances, with many more to come. Based on demand, I'll also be introducing video tutorials for piano pieces. Thank you.